You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. Tactics with Caleb Colquitt.
You think about it, Superman is like the embodiment of everything the left detests. He's extremely masculine. He's self-reliant. He is a white heterosexual Protestant, which, they can't stand that either. And on top of that, he's a very overtly messianic figure. Basically, he's living out American values. This is a private citizen who has absolutely nothing to gain from helping people, who says, I'm not going to wait for the government. I have the ability to help these people, therefore I will do it. That's who Superman is, and that's what America is. And they hate that.
Listen to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt, Thursday nights at 7 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TacticsRadio.com. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. America is divided as ever. How do you talk to your friends and neighbors about politics and religion in a way that doesn't devolve into yelling and pointless arguments? Luckily, Caleb Colquitt hosts the Tactics Podcast on Thursdays at 7 p.m. to teach you how to have thoughtful conversations about the hot-button issues of the day. As a national award-winning debater and gospel minister, Caleb knows how to discuss sensitive topics in a meaningful way. So subscribe to Tactics Radio on YouTube or like Tactics on Facebook so you can catch every episode and elevate your conversations today. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. Tactics with Caleb Colquitt.
Liberals seem to have a hard time understanding this, but when it comes to an economy, it's like a lake. If you throw a rock into a lake, it ripples out. Now, there's going to be some areas of the lake more affected by that than not, but when you throw a giant boulder into it, that affects the whole lake. You can't just affect one little part of the economy. It's all interconnected.
Listen to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt, Thursday nights at 7 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TacticsRadio.com.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move. It is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
Never step onto the battlefield of ideas unprepared. Before you enter the fray, you need a plan. And there's no better place to get one than right here on Tactics with host Caleb Colquitt. The Situation Room goes live now on News Radio 1440.
Good evening, folks, and thank you so much for being here. And I know it's actually been a little while since I've done a political stream, but we do have one tonight because it is election night. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And we're going to do some things that are a little unconventional that I've not really done a whole lot of. Going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So am going to have your chats up here on stream, and I will try to answer any questions or talk about it. But we're just going to do some live coverage. So what we'll go ahead and do is take a look at some of the results. And I have no idea how long this stream is going to go. Could be, 10, 15 minutes, could be a couple hours. Just depends on how talkative you guys are, how interested you are in it. And frankly, how interesting the races are, because, we could have a blowout to where we kind of know what the results are going to be way ahead of time, which I expect for some of these races. So we will play it by ear, just see how that goes and exactly what we're going to be expecting for tonight. So we will see, but let's go ahead and if I've done this correctly, because this is my first time doing it like this. Okay, there we go. So we've got some live election results here. Let's go ahead and look at some of them. So it looks like in the primary, let's see, the Alabama U.S. Senate Republican primary, right now we've got Barry Moore at 38. We've got Steve Marshall coming in at second at 27, Jared Hudson at 22. That's actually a little surprising. I'm quite stunned that Jared Hudson got that high. I would not have expected that. I was expecting Jared Hudson to maybe barely crack the teens, if that. So that one's a little surprising. Again, this is 4% estimated reporting, so, take that with a grain of salt. But it looks like right now they have had several precincts that have reported. Typically the urban areas, they have more votes to count, but they also have more infrastructure, so they tend to report a little earlier in a lot of cases. So we will see. But it looks like right now Barry Moore is winning pretty handedly. That's a more than a 10-point lead. Now, this race I predicted probably going to go to a runoff. If I had to guess, and I could be wrong, been wrong before, but this one probably going to go to a runoff. I would be very surprised if it did not. So I don't know how that one's going to shake out, but I was predicting a runoff between Barry Moore and our current Attorney General Steve Marshall months ago. I voted for Moore. I was public about that. I do like Steve Marshall. I think if Steve Marshall wins, we're going to have a good senator. I just think Barry Moore will be better. But that's where we are right now. Rodney Walker, Seth Burton, way too far behind. But again, this is 4% reporting. So we will see. It's going to be a long night. Don't know that that is going to stay the way that it is. But we actually just had an update. 6% reporting. Barry Moore does pick up some steam. But you'll also notice, too, that if you're looking at this map, a lot of the precincts that are reporting and reporting for Moore are also in Moore's kind of territory. So he does better with Southern Alabama than he does Northern Alabama, although he's currently winning Huntsville, which is not a huge shock, but he's currently winning Huntsville as well, which of course is part of the northern part of the state. This is actually looking really good for Barry. Again, 6% reporting. That's very small. Could be very different by the end of the night. But if the race wound up the way that it is right now, there actually would be no need for a runoff. So, yeah, this is actually more. I would be more worried if I were Steve Marshall about Jared Hudson than I would be Barry Moore right now, because it looks like those two are a lot closer and in striking distance. So let's go down and look at this. Okay, so Alabama Senate Democrat primary. Honestly, this doesn't matter much because there's almost a 0% chance that they would win this one, but let's look at it anyway. Everett West is at sorry, at 43%. Again, this is 11% reporting. Honestly, I'm just not interested in this because in Alabama, most of your Democrat primaries end up being non-candidates. That's just the way that it is. So that's where we are right now. Jared Hudson being so close within striking distance of Steve Marshall is actually quite surprising. That to me is the biggest one. All right. Wow, they're already calling it, and I am not surprised. Tommy Tuberville with 87%. They've already called the race for Tuberville. I called the race for Tuberville before the polls even opened, so not a shock. Every single county that has reported in favor of Tuberville. Ken McFetters with 8%. I have no idea how to say that guy's name, 4%. Yeah. Tuberville is the Thanos of this election. He's inevitable. Don't see that. They've also called it for his opponent, Doug Jones, which, again, not a surprise there. Will Boyd and Alonda Flowers, I mean, they're known quantities when it comes to Democrats. They know these guys. These are names they recognize. Yolanda Flowers ran for governor last time. I think William Boyd has run before as well. There actually is one county that's reporting more for William Boyd, which is near his hometown. But yeah, Doug Jones with the 77%. I mean, it's not surprising. There's no way anybody was going to overcome that. I get that there's only 11% reporting, but yeah, Doug Jones is going to win it. And I frankly think that Doug Jones made a very smart political play by running for governor this cycle. I know a lot of people are going to have their eyebrows raised like, why? There's no chance he's going to beat Tuberville. That's actually why it was smart for him to run for governor right now. Because right now, he gets all of the credit for running the race as a governor and has run another statewide race. Of course, he was our senator and won that race and then lost his subsequent race after that. So he has won a statewide race in the state of Alabama before, but this gives him all the credit of having run on the national stage, but he can just throw up his hands when he loses as the excuse, well, there was no chance of me ever beating Tommy Tuberville, and he's not wrong. Right now, I just don't think there's any chance of any Republican or Democrat beating Tommy Tuberville. He's going to be our next governor, and he will win this handedly without a runoff. They've already called it, as you can see, and that is the right call. Lieutenant governor, this one is probably the most interesting race out of all of them. I am kind of surprised that John Wall is so far ahead. I would have predicted either Wes Allen or Rick Pate. Rick Pate, as the Commissioner of Agriculture, that is one of the most important constitutional officers we have in the state of Alabama, because I believe it's a $22 billion industry for the state of Alabama. It is by far, agriculture is by far the biggest industry in the state of Alabama. And it's not just the Ag Commissioner, even though that's usually what we shorthand it for. It's the Commissioner of Agriculture and Industries. So his duties primarily focus on agriculture, but they go to the industry and regulation side of that as well. Rick Pate held that office. That's an extremely important office. I would have thought that he would have done better. Seeing him, slumming it in the single digits, that's really, really surprising. Unfortunately, my preferred candidate has not even cracked the top 5. That, of course, is Stuart Tankersley, and really was hoping that he would make more of a splash, at least wind up somewhere in the top 5, even if it wasn't super impressive. I'm not surprised. He has very low name ID. This is a statewide race. The odds that he was going to win in big numbers were pretty slim, but I was really pulling for him. I promoted him myself, thought that he would make a great lieutenant governor, but unfortunately, it looks like John Wall probably going to take that one. Now, the thing about lieutenant governor is it is a largely ceremonial thing. So I get that people think of it as more prestigious, and that's why Rick Pate is going for this office. But the reason that this particular one is so overcrowded is because nobody wanted to run against Tommy Tuberville. Therefore, just about everybody wanted to run for lieutenant governor. So that's where you are. And it looks like John Wall is probably going to win that one if things continue the way that it is. But it's only 8% reporting. We got a long night. Lieutenant governor for Democrat, again, doesn't matter. Not very interesting. Okay, now this is also a very interesting race. The Alabama Attorney General primary. We're looking at this right now, and it looks like Katherine Robinson is winning. Jay Mitchell coming up behind, but this is a very winnable race for Mitchell. Pamela Casey, not surprised that she's in third place, but she's running a pretty strong third. And honestly, it could be one of those situations where we'll never know what might have been if Pamela Casey weren't in the race and this wound up between Katherine Robinson and Jay Mitchell. This one could very well go into a runoff, though. And I would honestly, we'll have that answer if we see a runoff situation here. And that is very, very plausible. I could easily see Katherine Robinson and Jay Mitchell winding up in a runoff. You may have noticed earlier that in my picks and what I wound up voting for, I picked Katherine Robinson. Some information came out between me publishing that and voting today from some of my friends about the life issue that made me lean a little bit more towards Jay Mitchell, and I wound up actually voting for Jay Mitchell, even though my article talks about both of them, and wound up with me going with Kathleen Robertson. But again, I published that before this information came to my attention from some friends that saw my article. So that's where we stand on the Attorney General primary. I'm not going to be super upset regardless of who wins this one. And frankly, I expected this one to go to a runoff. I'm not as confident about this one as I am the Senate. I think that one's almost certainly going to be a runoff. I could see this one going either way, but it looks like Katherine Robinson has a pretty strong lead right now by about 10 points. And that is probably not going to change. I would be kind of surprised if Jay Mitchell starts making up some ground here, but we'll see. All right, the Secretary of State. This, unfortunately, is exactly what I was expecting. My preferred candidate, poor Miss Glenda Jackson, is at 12.3%. Caroline Dobson, she had some name recognition. I don't think she's well equipped to be the Secretary of State, just being perfectly honest. She had a lot more money. She had a lot more endorsements. This one kind of felt like it was probably going to go this route. Almost all of the endorsements that I saw from people, almost unanimously, with very few exceptions, were for Miss Dobson. So I'm not stunned. This is kind of what I was expecting, but it is a shame because I would have really liked to see really either Horn or Jackson. In my opinion, Dobson's the weakest candidate, the least conservative candidate. Well, not the least conservative, but certainly the least suited for the job. That's how I'll say it. She didn't seem to know a whole lot about the functions of the Secretary of State. Had some issues answering basic questions, whereas the other two seem to have some level of expertise there. Oh, we just had more reporting. So that does cut her lead by a little bit, but not by much. It's pretty much the same as it was a second ago. But no, still holding out hope, Miss Jackson. But I don't think so. Okay, let's look at some house races. Unfortunately, Mike Rogers at 87%, by far the worst by a very, very wide margin of all of the Alabama representatives, with the sole exception of Terry Sewell. So that's a shame. Hate to see Mike Rogers win this one. I'm not in his district, so I couldn't vote against him. But I have been wanting Mike Rogers to get primaried out since I got into this business. He's never been a good representative. Absolute trash. Really wish that he would get voted out. Robert Adderholt. Adderholt has some issues with. I have some issues with Adderholt, but overall, a really good representative. He's going to win this one against Tommy Barnes pretty handedly. Not surprising there. He'll easily win the House seat as well. Let's see. Dale Strong. He was the incumbent and ran unopposed. No shock there. All right. Tim Milson. Not really a surprise there either. They've already called it. Philip Pettis. No reporting there, actually. Interesting. All right. So those are the races that we're seeing from 270 right now. Let's take a quick look and update. Yeah, the Senate races. Well, actually, Barry Moore has pulled ahead a little bit. Wow. Jared Hudson within literally 1 percentage point of Steve Marshall. That's very surprising. I would not have expected that, just being perfectly honest here. Having Jared Middleton, would not have seen that one coming. Just didn't see that one. That was not on my bingo card. But if you guys have any questions, if you're interested in any races, you want to shout out about something that you've noticed on the maps or anything, feel free to mention it in the comments. I'll try to respond to it. I've got it up there on screen. It looks like Tommy Tuberville is giving his speech, so let's go ahead and listen to that real quick. Well, if I can get it to play. There we go. All right, let's watch this from the beginning.
And write everybody a check and say everything's going to be great, but who's going to work and who's going to make the money? That's what they are now.
Okay.
I'm running against people that believe that men should play in women's sports. I still can't fathom that. I can't fathom that anybody would believe that would be good for anybody.
Tell them, Coach.
I've had 4 bills on the floor, and I've not had one Democrat vote for it. So again, I'm not running against a person. I'm running against an ideology that is so bad, that is so far left, that has nothing to do with the last 250 years that this country has been great, that it's going to be fun to run against because they have nothing positive to say. We're going to talk about how great this country is and how much greater we can make it, how much greater we can make the state of Alabama, how much greater we can make the military in this state, how much greater we can make Gadsden and Prattville and Decatur, not just Huntsville and Birmingham and Montgomery and the big cities, all of it. Here's the deal. We have so much opportunity in this state. If we will take advantage of it, and it's not me, I'm going to help put the plan together, but I'm going to have a group of people that's going to put this plan together. We're going to go out for the next 4 or 5 months and we're going to ask people, what is your biggest need? What do you want to do to make your life better? What are you missing? First of all, I'm going to bring up, we have to put God back in our country.
Okay.
We have to put God back in our families.
Yep, that's an applause line.
We have to do the things that are basic. It's like blocking and tackling. You have to do the basic things.
Of course, he's going to
build our families back. Build a strong
I'm not
military,
making fun of him,
strong law
but
enforcement.
Tuberville's smart enough
really
to know
one
that
thing
football
that makes
analogies
me
work in
mad.
this state.
Folks, how in the world can you believe that you don't need law enforcement? How can you believe that you can defund our, our law enforcement, our men and women in blue. How can you do that? Well, that's what I'm running against. It's going to be easy to call that out. They don't have anything to sell. I've got something to sell. I'm going to make everything we have better. Now, it's going to take a while, and I'm going to need a lot of help. A lot of you out there in this audience are going to be part of it. It's not a one-man show. It's not a one-person show. It's like football. You better have good people around you. And that's exactly what we've been trying to put together for the last 14 months. We have a plan. We have a plan for everything from infrastructure to build.
Look, when it comes to Coach Tuberville, I just find it hilarious because in this state, he understands you relate everything to football. And I mean, as somebody who's both covered politics and a minister, that's just something that pretty much universally works here. I'm not making fun of him for that. It's smart. It's just, I don't know, it tickles me because you relate everything to football. That's the way to connect to the people of Alabama.
We have got to start teaching our kids knowledge instead of indoctrination. This DEI nonsense and this critical race theory has got to go. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. We're going to have a strong legislative group. After tonight, we'll have a group that will come back and start next January, and we're going to put everything in perspective of making it better. We can do it. We can do it. People want to move to the South, and they're going to pick. And I'm getting back in the SEC. I recruited at Ole Miss, and I recruited at Auburn. And I recruited against Georgia and Tennessee and Florida, Mississippi, all the schools that are in the SEC, because everybody's going to have an opportunity to sell what they have. Manufacturing's coming back. AI is, that people say it's coming. No, it ain't coming. It's already here. We have to prepare our kids.
Now that is interesting because being against an AI, like AI companies and AI developers coming here, I don't think that's a winning strategy, and I don't know that he's going to hold to that. But, and I'm not saying that as a cut against him. I actually think that it would be a good thing. I'm not saying like give him free reign of the state or anything like that, but be open to it, I think is probably a better policy.
It's going to be hard for the next 4 or 5 months. We're not going to take anything for granted. Everybody said, Coach, you've got this one. You never have anything won. You go out and you do it the hard way. You shake hands, you tell people what you're going to do, but you also ask them questions while you're doing it.
Now, I do believe that he hasn't won, but that's the right strategy and the right approach to take. And the reason that I say that is when it comes to politics, the thing you do not want to do is get your voter base complacent, because Doug Jones, I don't think that he's got a prayer. I don't think there's any chance he's going to be our next governor. There was a very weird combination of factors that had to happen in order for him to be our senator. But that's just not going to happen again, especially not in a special off-year election against somebody like Roy Moore. Like, yes, Tuberville does have this one in the bag, but you say that because you don't want your voters to get complacent, because you don't want a low turnout where your voters don't turn out. Not only that, but because of down ticket as well.
I want to thank everybody that's helped, again, all of my staff, putting all this together, everybody back here. I want to thank the media for coming. And I want the media to be on board with it. I want you to tell exactly what we're getting ready to do to the people across Alabama in the next few months. And then when we hit the ground running, we're not going to take any prisoners. We're going hard.
Come on, man. Play the War Eagle fight song.
We have no time to waste. We need to get our state
at
another level. And I wanted to get it to the top level. God bless Alabama. And folks, God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, it's not a bad speech.
Dr. Tuberville has been announced as the winner of the Republican nomination for governor of Alabama. The AP
WSFA.
announcing.
Appreciate them. But no, that's where we stand right now. And Tuberville winning the nomination, that's as good as winning the governorship. But again, the reason that he was saying that, you don't want to make your base feel like they can just kind of coast, or they don't have to put pedal to the metal or show out. And that's not only important because of your race, but there are a lot of people that if they think that the governor's race is in the bag, they're not going to show up for the other constitutional officers' races. And you could wind up with Tuberville winning the governor's race, but there's a much closer race down ticket somewhere that the Republicans lost, and now he's less effective at his job because he talked as though the election was already in the bag. So politically smart, I agree with Tuberville. That's what I would have advised him to say too. But let's just be honest, he has this one in the bag. All right. So it looks like we haven't had too much of an update here, not as many reporting. They're probably going to be rolling in about 30 minutes here. And that's where we're going to see the big numbers start to turn out. Wes Allen has really closed that gap. Wow. Wes Allen much more likely to be the nomination for our lieutenant governor. You're seeing a lot more yellow pop up. And one thing that you'll notice is that John Wall seems to have more of the urban areas, whereas Wes Allen has more of the rural areas, which are coming in later. That's why he's closed a big portion of the gap much later. Yeah, less than a percentage. Well, no, exactly 1 percentage point now. And Wes Allen is winning Birmingham. So I could see him winning Montgomery. And if he wins Montgomery County, that would put him over the top. That would actually put him in the lead right now. So this is still anybody's race. Honestly, at this point, the most likely scenario looks like runoff. And probably a runoff between John Wall and Wes Allen, which, again, I didn't pick either one of them. I don't think that they're bad candidates, but I would have voted for either Allen or Pate. My only issue with Allen is that guy just likes taxes way too much. He's not like horribly liberal. He's not socially liberal. I don't think that he's a terrible person. I just think that he does like taxes too much and is not really fiscally conservative. But, that's my take on it. Anything in the Attorney General? Okay, that gap has closed a hair, but I think last time we checked, it was a 10-point gap. Now it's a little less than a 9-point gap. So that's not much of an improvement. This one probably going to go to a runoff as well. Pamela Casey's actually increased some, and she has won. I always forget, is that Mobile County or Baldwin County? I know those two at the bottom are Mobile and Baldwin. I just always forget which is which. I want to say that's Baldwin County. People in the comments are going to be tearing me up over my poor geography. Caroline Dobson, wow. Okay. She has pulled ahead to where a runoff is quite unlikely. It's 13% reporting. Could we see them start to make that up? Yeah, but it's not looking good. I don't think Horn or Jackson has much of a chance at this point. Let's see, are there any others that they've called that were not called earlier? It doesn't look like it. No. Okay. Well, let's look and see if there's any reporting from WSFA we missed. Nope. Looks like they're pretty much on par with the 270 to win.com. Barry Moore is pulling further ahead than I thought, which is a really good sign. Would love to see Barry Moore be able to win this one without a runoff. And he's close to that. I believe it's 20 points. Or no, it's bigger than 20 points. I think it's, or is the rule over 50%? Well, either way, if it's, we have, I thought I saw some movement there. Okay, so this one, again, Jay Mitchell in striking distance. Caroline Dobson pretty far ahead. Young Boozer, they've already called that one for him. Well, that's good. Young Boozer, not a surprise. He's the incumbent. Steve Lawley's an outsider. He's currently winning by 70%. Yeah, that's only with 10% in, but the odds that you're going to be able to come back on that one are low. And remember that if you're in a head-to-head, the runoff rule doesn't apply. So he's almost certainly going to win this one. They've already called it. That's probably the right call. Andrew Sorrell, again, the incumbent. I really like Derek Chen. I do. I think that he's an interesting candidate. I'd like to see him run again for something else, but he wasn't going to beat Andrew Sorrell. Sorrell's already been the auditor for a while now. You're just not going to see that. All right, Ag Commissioner. This one is really important to me. And I am quite pleased to see that Christina McInnes is not winning. I was afraid that she was going to. Ooh, and we just got an update. So, and it looks like they just called the race for Mike Rogers on this site. They had already called it on the other one. I think it's pretty much done, so that's fine. But anyway, Corey Hill, I think Hill would be a good commissioner of ag. It looks like he is currently about 5 points up. This one's probably going to go to a runoff as well. I don't know where the Jack Williams vote is going to go. Williams is actually the one I voted for. I thought he was the best candidate, but I don't have anything against Corey Hill. I think McInnes is not a bad candidate, but I think she's by far the weakest out of the current pool. So it was, for me, it was Williams, Hill, and then McInnes somewhere down here. So there was a pretty big drop off after those top two for me, but unfortunately it looks like my preferred candidate is not even going to wind up in the runoff. So there we go. Mike Rogers, no reporting yet for District 6. And that's because that mainly, if you're looking at the election maps, let's go back up here. For the other statewide races, you'll notice that most of that district has not reported. That's mostly Palmer's area right there. So that's a little, you just got some, vision and vision there. But yeah, you'll notice that that's not a huge surprise that we don't have any word yet on the Gary Palmer race. They've already, they really already called it for him without a single reporting. I mean, I don't like Case Dixon, so I'm fine with that. But I'm not a fan of Case Dixon. Even before the scandal, I thought that he was sleazy. Oh no, wait, sorry, I was getting my races mixed up. He wasn't the one with the scandal, but no. I mean, I do think he's sleazy, but Case Dixon, he's just a podcast bro. If you want Theo Vaughn as your House representative, I guess Case Dixon would be the way to go, but no. Gary Palmer, very conservative member of the House, one of the best ones we've got, second only to Barry Moore. So, yeah, Gary Palmer, glad that he's my representative, would vote for him again 100 times. Okay, Board of Education, Mari Manning, looks like they have put a star next to her name, which is surprising because I know it's only 8% reporting, but Bradford is actually ahead. Let's see. Emily Jones is ahead. Public Service Commission. Now that is surprising. Matt Gentry is way ahead of Jeremy Oden. That I did not see coming. By the way, I just realized that star doesn't mean that they've confirmed. The yellow means that they've confirmed. The star means they're the incumbent because Jeremy Oden is the incumbent. I just figured out what that meant. Okay, so now I understand how to read WSFA's election results. Yeah, Jeremy Oden at 24.7. Wow, that's a shellacking. Now, it could turn around, but man, that is a big hole to have to climb out of. And I am quite surprised. Did not see that one happening. Let's see. It looks like Jim Ziegler is well ahead in the Public Service Commission. Not a huge surprise there either. 45%. Jim Ziegler, a very known quantity in this state. I think that he's probably going to win that one. I did have some friends that were very vocally advocating for Brent Woodhull, and I trust their judgment, but I think Jim Ziegler, he's the known quantity. He's the one that people are probably going to pick, and he's the one that I voted for as well. So that's fine with me. Okay, for the amendment of denying bail in cases of shooting into an occupied residence, disarm or committing either committing a murder, being suspected committing of murder, um, conspiracy to commit murder, all of those you can deny bail for. It looks like that one's going to pass overwhelmingly. I don't see, where's the Amendment 2 vote? It doesn't look like they have reporting on that one yet. Yeah, that one's going to win pretty easily. Unfortunately, almost every constitutional amendment passes. Now, in this case, I actually did vote yes for both of them, but one unfortunate reality of this state is it's quite common for the constitutional amendments to just pass regardless. And that is unfortunate. All right, State Senate looks like Randy Price in a commanding lead, Kirk Hatcher in a commanding lead, Jay Hoover. No reporting on District 37. Kevin Lawrence. Okay, so you can see all of that there. Barry 40 for the Democrats. I didn't know there was even a Democrat primary on that one. I'm going to be honest. It's a lot to keep up with. Okay, and it looks like there's not much results going down any further than that. Again, it's pretty early in the night. Okay, so maybe over in the eastern part of the state, we do have a little bit. It looks like Jay Jones is winning that one. We got Daniel Sexton. We got Ross Morris. We got Tony Langley. Richard Garland Sr. for the Democrats. Jacqueline Carzile. Patsy Parker. Tamika Lockhart. I actually met her before. I don't remember what we talked about, but Jay Jones for the executive committee of Lee County. They've already called that one. So Lee County apparently has already been reporting. But let's see. It looks like this reporting's pretty much the same as the other. Now with the election, there's not a ton of good for that. Let's see. It looks like they're at the Doug Jones watch party. Yeah. Well, it's not surprising. He won that one. So. All right. Well, there we are. Not a lot going on here. Okay, so no recent updates. Oh, well, there is one. They are calling it for Barry Moore, but it looks like they are calling it in Moore's favor. That's with 24% reporting. So that is an important update. It looks like Jared Hudson gets pretty close to Marshall. That's again quite surprising. I'm not stunned that Rodney Walker and Seth Burton are down there at the bottom, though. I just expected Hudson to be with them. Like, I thought maybe Hudson, because of all the advertising that I was seeing from him, might get 10, maybe crack the teens and get into 13, 14, but I did not expect him to get 22. Barry Moore with 42.5. That's a really good result for him. I know that it was looking close, and this is a state where Steve Marshall is very popular, so that's actually really good news for the Moore camp. I'm sure that they're celebrating down in Slocum, but that one is pretty conclusive. Let's see. John Wall and Wes Allen really duking it out now. They have more reporting, and John Wall has gained about a percentage point, but this one could still very easily go either way, especially with Wes Allen and the areas that have not yet reported. You could still see Wes Allen winning this one. I hate it for Rick Pate. He's down at 6.5. I like Rick Pate. I don't think that he's like the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he did a pretty good job as ag commissioner. Kind of sucks for him not even being able to break into the double digits. That's got to be really disheartening for him. All right, Attorney General. Jay Mitchell's gained a little bit, but not much. It will be interesting, though, but Mitchell would have to get the bulk of the Pamela Casey voters in order to win this one if he takes it to a runoff. So that will be interesting to see. I don't know what the profile of a Pamela Casey voter is. Like, I'd have to look at a lot of exit poll data to figure that out. So it'll be interesting to see that if I can get my hands on some of that. And exit polling is not something that Alabama does a ton of. So we will see. Jeez. Yeah, Caroline Dobson. They haven't called it for her yet, but they're probably going to before long. That's a really, really big hill to climb. All right. Well, let's check in with WSFA. No, nothing of note going on there. Just some crawfish. And let's see. Nothing really a note here either. No alternate reporting here. All right. Well, it's kind of slowed down here. We're just going to see the numbers kind of trickle in. So what we'll probably do is I'm going to take a quick break, probably just a few minutes to give my voice a rest and get back to that. I don't know why we're still looking at crawfish, but oh well. We'll get to the results of that in a little bit. So what we'll do is we will take a quick break here, and then I'll probably be back in like 5-10 minutes and see if the numbers have changed at all, see if there's anything to report. If there is something that breaks, I will break into that commercial break. So just kind of keep this on in the background, or you can watch one of our hilarious sketches that I'm going to show here in a second. But we'll be back to election coverage 2026 here in just a minute.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
Hey, where you going? Champ? Slugger? Hey, cowboy. Where you going? Where you going?
I'm going out!
Hey everybody, it's Caleb here, and I'm just driving close to Montevallo, Alabama today, but I've had a lot of people ask me about the three maxims of tactics. Speech isn't violence, tolerance isn't love, and disagreement isn't hate. So I thought I might elaborate on one of them, since I have had people asking me for a little more explanation on what those really mean. Now, the first one, speech isn't violence, it's actually kind of making two statements. Because of course it is saying that speech, in other words, the rhetoric in which we engage with one another, is not violence. We can disagree with one another, we can be passionate about our side of the argument, but that doesn't necessarily equate to violence. And even when somebody says something that you really dislike, that really bothers you or offends you, even if they say something that is morally incorrect, it's still not violence. That's the first message that is conveyed by this. But the second part is just as important, maybe even more so, and that is that violence isn't speech. Because it's saying that these two things are not equal, that they are not the same. And so while it's saying speech isn't violence, in other words, the things that you say to a person, even if they are really hurtful, they're still not the same as violence and should not be treated as such. The inverse of that is that violence is also not speech. And I think that this is incredibly appropriate considering what just happened in the Capitol over the past few days. We have to always remember that even though you feel justified or feel that somebody else has done something wrong, that still doesn't justify violence. And really it's saying the same message. Because as horrible as some of the things that some people have done, unless they bring harm to another individual, no matter what it is that they've said, no matter what their political ideology is, it still doesn't elevate to the level of violence. And this is actually being recorded on Dr. Martin Luther King Day, so I think that this is incredibly appropriate. This is the guy who started the nonviolence movement. It was his idea. He was the one that did it the best. Did you know that Dr. King made every single person that marched with him sign a pledge that they committed themselves that they would not, no matter what, engage in violence? And he made sure that all of them signed this before they would march with him, because he knew that if they were ever tempted, if they had even a moment of weakness, even when people that were in power were doing real injustices to them, that they could not engage in violence because violence doesn't work. The doctrine that King preached is the same doctrine that Jesus Christ talks about in his Sermon on the Mount. That even when an enemy offends you, persecutes you, talks evil about you, you turn the other cheek. You don't engage in violence. Their bad action does not justify you doing evil towards them as well. Two wrongs never make a right. This is something that Dr. King understood. This is something that Jesus understood, and something that Jesus taught others and his disciples, including people like Dr. King, to do. That you cannot snuff out evil with more evil. In the same way, you cannot stop violence with more violence, even when it is justified, even when it's understandable why someone would want to engage in violence. That still doesn't make it okay for you to do so unless you're acting in immediate self-defense of your life. Ultimately, that's what it boils down to. Both these great men and many Christians who have lived throughout the ages understood that very basic principle of the teachings of Christ, that speech is not violence.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
All right, gang, and we are back. Just going to jump back into our election coverage. Not a ton happened while we were gone. I was keeping an eye on it, just giving my voice a chance to rest. But the reporting hasn't been rolling in super fast here, so we're kind of in that slower part of the night where it's just more reporting of the same. That's typically how election night goes, but we're going to stay tuned and see if any big developments happen. So we'll go ahead and skip to, if I can get it up here. There we go. All right. So we will go ahead and take a look at this. Now, the news that I had not brought earlier, because this is just kind of on a rotating thing, it looks as though both constitutional amendments they are going to pass, which is what I predicted. Now, the John Wall race and the Wes Allen, John Wall is still pulling ahead, and that's a good sign for him. Because remember, Wes Allen in the earlier reporting was within 1 percentage point. Now he's dropped down to about 3 percentage points lower, which doesn't sound like a massive difference, but there's something in elections known as trend lines. And unless there's a good reason to believe otherwise, like unless we were looking at a map of Alabama and the areas that had not reported, and those areas tended to be more favorable for Wes Allen, then we might have a solid argument as to why this one could wind up going in a different direction. However, it doesn't really look like that is the case. There's no discernible pattern that we could sort of definitively say. Does it mean it couldn't happen? No. But the odds that you're going to see a Wes Allen all of a sudden start to pull ahead, very slim. It's the reason that in the 2020 election, it was so weird that all of a sudden when more counting happened, that you saw a big surge in Joe Biden's numbers when the entire night had been, or not the entire night, but earlier on in the race, it had been going in the other direction. And so there's a few reasons for that, but this is a similar dynamic to what you're seeing here. Is it impossible that Wes Allen just does really good in the western part of the state and pulls ahead? It's possible. Is it likely based on the trend line we're seeing? No, it is not. So you're probably looking at a Wes Wall runoff anyway. And I don't know, if I had to guess, a lot of your Rick Pate voters are going to go for Wall. I don't know the profile of a Nicole Jones Wadworth voter, so I doubt we're going to see a lot of change there. But this layout and the amount of votes that his opponents are getting, if I had to guess, this actually also benefits Wall. I don't know as much about Pat Bishop. Tankersley, I could see that one going either way. And I say that as a Tankersley voter. I don't know what direction his voters would go. Ooh, Tankersley actually just got a little boost. I should talk about him more. No, it's not how that works. The polls are closed. But no, Tankersley with 3.4, that's a nice little bump in the percentage points there. That's 5,000 votes. That's not nothing. Maybe he can get into the runoff. No, Dr. Tank is a great guy. Doesn't look like there's much chance of him winning the election tonight, but I will say this for him. I hope, this is my genuine hope, because it's looking like there's no chance that he winds up as our lieutenant governor, which is a darn shame. If Dr. Tankersley has made a lot of good political connections through this process of running for lieutenant governor, what we could see is him being in an appointed position. For example, somewhere in the Alabama Department of Public Health, which would be phenomenal. He'd be amazing at that. He knows the system. He knows the problems with the system. He understands the failings that we had during the COVID pandemic and a number of other things. I think that he would be phenomenal at that. I hope that that is what this leads to. I don't know if that is the case or not, but Tankersley would be excellent in that position. And if that is the only thing that comes out of him running, it will have been worth it. So would love to see that happen for him. Obviously, I have no inside information that that might happen at some point, but maybe he's made some of those political connections that people would at least consider him. And, you know, coming from somebody with virtually no name recognition that getting 3.4% of the vote, that's not bad. It's really not. I mean, he's beating out Bishop and Childress. So it's a very, very crowded field too. That didn't help him. Lieutenant Governor Philip Ensler, I guess. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're not going to win. All right, so Barry Moore. Wow. Barry Moore with a commanding lead there. And I'm going to do this. We'll do this live. We'll do this together. Here. Let's see. I want to say it's 50%. More than 50% to win the nomination. Yep. Okay. I was right. Yeah, greater than 50% of the total votes. Okay. Well, Barry Moore is unlikely to be able to do that at this point. That's 20%. Let's see. This is 32% reporting. Well, that makes sense. 270 to win. They're a big national one, so they probably get the reporting a little and post the reporting a little earlier. But yeah, so with 32% reporting, it looks like Barry Moore has got 41% of the vote. That's actually a little bit lower than we saw over at what was that? Over at WSFA's? Yeah, 43%, 41. Yeah, so it's a little bit lower than we were seeing reported earlier. You hate that. Because if you were someone that was pulling for Barry Moore, and by the way, I don't think that somebody that was voting for Steve Marshall is a terrible person. Like, Steve Marshall is a good candidate. He just happened to be going up against somebody with a lot of legislative experience and pretty good name ID in the state. So Steve Marshall probably could have run for something else. I thought it was a mistake for him to run for Senate, honestly. Like, I know Steve Marshall. I've spoken to him many, many times. I've interviewed him on my show before. if he came to me and said, Caleb, what position should I run for? I would have not told him to run for the Senate. There are plenty of other places I would have recommended. I would have seen him as a really good state auditor. I could see him in the House or the Senate of the state. I could see him running for one of the U.S. House seats. But running for Senate against Barry Moore, not a wise decision, especially with a field this crowded. And it looks like he may even get overtaken by Jared Hudson. I doubt that will happen, but I genuinely like Steve Marshall. I want to see him go places politically. Going up against Barry Moore in a Senate race was a dumb idea. That's my opinion, but I think that my opinion bears out. Anyway, so it looks like Jared Hudson won a surprising amount of counties, though, which, again, kind of stuns me, especially Jefferson County. I would not have seen him as winning Jefferson County. Now, I get why Barry Moore didn't win it, because it is a far more liberal county than Huntsville or Mobile or even Montgomery. Montgomery is a pretty liberal county too, but it's not as liberal. That does bring up an interesting point, though, because typically the West Alabama vote tends to be more liberal as well. I mean, we do have Representative Terry Sewell from the Selma area. So theoretically, since Hudson would be the more liberal of the candidates in this one, between him, Moore, and Marshall, I'm not saying he is liberal. I'm saying he's more liberal. And the liberal areas tended to go for him a little bit harder. Could we see him pull ahead of Steve Marshall? Because that, to me, is the more interesting question now, because the odds that Barry Moore is going to get over 50%, probably not high. Just the odds of him making it into the runoff, very, very slim. Well, I should rephrase that. The odds of him being able to overtake Moore, very, very slim. But Marshall or Hudson, either one of them, that's the race that's interesting now, because if Jared Hudson overtakes Marshall, then it becomes Hudson versus Moore. Now, I think either one of them are going to lose based on these numbers, but that is an interesting way to look at it. And the question is, when Hudson's voters trail off, are they more likely to go for Moore or more likely to go for Marshall? I think they probably wind up more in Marshall's camp. Now, he'd have to get darn near all of them in order to win the runoff. But I don't see Barry Moore being in much danger if the race winds up this way. If we do see some fluctuation, like if his vote goes down or Marshall or Hudson goes up, that makes a difference. But right now, Barry Moore is almost certainly in the runoff. The question is, who is going to be his opponent? All right. Let's see. Okay, so we're actually seeing the race tighten up a little bit for the lieutenant governor. So maybe Wes Allen does come out on top of this one. Right now, it's almost certain that those are going to be the two in the runoff. So who wins is not unimportant, but it's not super important, because they're going to have to do this again in 6 weeks. So there we are. All right. The Attorney General. Well, it's not looking good for Jay Mitchell or Pamela Casey, but it's also not looking good for Robertson. And by that, I mean she's almost certainly going to win this, but she's also probably going to go to a runoff. So it looks like that one almost certainly is going to be a Mitchell versus Robertson. Although this is a little surprising, Casey has gone up a little bit, which means that she is now 9-ish points, a little less than 9 points away from Mitchell. That's kind of surprising. Probably not close enough to close that gap between now and the end of the election, but it's interesting. Secretary of State primary. Yeah, Caroline Dobson, I don't see Horn or Jackson being able to get anywhere near her at this point, which is a darn shame, because I think she's the worst candidate in the pool. No, they're at the Doug Jones rally. I think they're about to start his speech. All right, let's see what this is about. Let's see what's going on.
Democratic nominee for governor of Alabama and the next governor of Alabama, Doug Jones.
Okay, let's see what Dougie has to say.
And so
Okay, fortunate son.
I think
He's got good music if nothing else.
We just watched a campaign video produced by the Doug Jones campaign. We told you earlier this evening.
Oh, is that Mark Bullock's voice?
Doug Jones was nominated this evening to be the Democratic nominee for governor of Alabama. That means he will now run against Tommy Tuberville, the Republican nominee. He was introduced by Lieutenant Governor candidate Philip Insler of Montgomery. So let's listen in to see what Jones has to say tonight.
With Tommy's crushing victory on that, there's no
make sure the Florida man stays in Florida next year. All right. Thank you, Alabama. Thank you so much tonight.
Okay.
You know, but because of your votes, your trust, and a hell of a lot of hard work from people across this state, we've won this primary tonight. And that's awesome.
I mean, it's a victory, sure.
Incredibly grateful.
Give him a cookie.
And it is incredibly humbling when people,
so many folks
the general, that you don't even know, put their faith in you. And they just literally say, I voted for you. And there's so many people that made this possible. All of you guys made it possible. Our staff made it possible. Thousands of volunteers who made calls. We made over 40,000 calls just in the last couple of months. And we kept
if your bragging point is how many calls you've made.
And of course, and you'll see her back up here in a moment, but the one person that kept me going the whole time, even when she had to kind of kick me to go, my lovely running mate, my beautiful bride, Louise. Which, by the way, from this point on, let's just call her the next first lady of the state of Alabama.
Okay.
Folks, we've had a spirited
you got to
campaign.
respect the bluster.
I got in this campaign late. Y'all know that. But we did a lot of work to try to make sure that we got this night.
Didn't matter.
We've had a campaign, a spirited campaign with folks who had the same concern that we all do about the future of this state, the same conviction about how to move this state forward. And
the thing about Doug Jones is he's got zero chance of winning the general. But pretty much anybody that ran against him had zero chance of winning the primary. Like, he is the rock star of the Democrat Party in Alabama, which is kind of like being the coolest guy at a party with 3 people. But, you know, it's something. It is something. He is the most respected and seasoned statewide candidate the Democrats have. That's not much to hang your hat on, but it's something.
Campaign started and has always rested on one simple belief, that there's enough folks in Alabama who refuse to accept the way things are, the way things have always been. They refuse to say that the way they've always been is the way they're always going to be. We're going to change that.
That was a lot of platitudes.
So let me ask you guys a question. Do you hope and plan for a better future for yourself, your family, and your community? Well, if you do, and Lord God, I hope you do, let's admit.
That was an extremely tepid response.
Important to realize.
I mean, these are like your core people, and they were like, yeah.
Asking all of you, but also the folks that may be watching this. Look and ask yourself right now, can we do better? Can we do better than where we are?
Yes, easily, and we're going to.
And starting here tonight, we can begin that change. So, folks, I want to introduce you to some of the folks and what that change is going to look like. I want to bring Phil Insler back up.
Okay, we're going to do the credits rolling here. Yeah, he's just doing credits at this point.
I want you to welcome Jeff McLaughlin from Gunnersville, Alabama.
McLaughlin? In the arms of the angel.
And then from Madison County, I want to introduce you to Violet Edwards, the next state auditor. Come on.
I mean, at least he's not pulling a Howard Dean and just shouting random states at people.
Of you here in Jefferson County know this man. Wayne Rogers, our next Secretary of State.
Does he think he lives in a different state?
We've got a couple of others. Ron Sparks, who is going to be the next Agriculture Commissioner. Sheila McNeil, who's running for the public.
Now, Ron Sparks is the only actual viable candidate they have. I'm not a big Ron Sparks fan, but like generally, he is he going to win? No, but he's at least going to make some noise.
And that's a big thing. But folks, I got to tell you, to face the challenge in front of us, we need you, every one of you. We need your energy. We need your ideas. We need your commitment to engage, not just today or tomorrow or through November. When we win this ticket, when we win in November, we're going to need you to engage every day of every week of every month during the course of this administration. Folks, for too long, folks in Montgomery have worked only for themselves. And the powerful.
Yeah, you're supposed to work for yourself. That's how work works.
The well-connected, the special interest. They don't work for the people of Alabama. They don't work for the folks who pay.
I thought you just said we work for ourselves.
Hospital, work the farms, and keep this state moving. That's not who they're working for, but that's who every one of us will be working for in Montgomery, Alabama. Because today, those same people, they do what they've always done. They divide us. They divide us by religion. They divide us by race. They divide us by political party, by who we are, where we live, because division is the only thing they know. It's the system that they built to protect them.
Now that is rich, because the Democrats, they literally can't do anything other than identity politics. It's the only thing they've been doing for the past, well, at least 40 years, probably a little longer than that, but they literally don't know how to do anything else. So that is pretty rich coming from him, especially considering Doug Jones's personal record on that.
This is for Democrats. This is for independents. This is for Republicans and Democrats alike. This is for every Alabamian who believes state government ought to serve the people, not those inside. So over the last several elections, I think a lot of folks have come to believe that politics in this state offers no real choices. They watch state government ignore the things that shape their lives.
Well, no, we're literally deciding today what our choices is. We're just doing it in the primary. Today's election is actually the much more impactful one in the state of Alabama. We do have choices.
Is really speaking to them. And often, more often than not, they are not speaking for them. Things do not have to be that way. They do not have to be the way they've always been. And please understand this, folks. I'm not just talking about Doug Jones. One person, even a governor, cannot change a century of concentrated, corrupted power. We're going to start with these incredible candidates. We're going to build a team committed. Wait a minute. This is not a game, folks. We're not a stadium. This is not a team. This is a crew.
What happened there is he accidentally realized he was using his opponent's language. So he started talking about stadium and team, and he was like, oh, right, my opponent's a football coach. Maybe I should lay off on the symbolism there.
Watching on television. That's who we're going to.
This guy is so ill prepared. It's hilarious.
Across the state who understand the meaning of the change in Alabama. Change means rising wages, including raising the minimum wage. Change means better, more affordable health care. Change means expanding Medicaid to make health care affordable. Change means better jobs, often by investing in small businesses that are already here. That's what.
Right. We're several million in debt, but we're going to do all of these other things that are going to cost us billions more, and somehow that will be the change that we need. Okay, Doug.
I want to see Alabama to be the state where every generation does not feel like success means leaving home forever. We're going to keep those young people right here in the state of Alabama. We want to stay where our young people can grow and learn and serve and go see the world if they want to, but then come right back here to grow their towns, to grow their community, to grow their family.
The reason that Alabama is in the state that it's in is because it was controlled by Democrats until 2010. So the idea that Democrats are just innocent bystanders that just happen to be in the state as though they've always been this minority party that they are now. That's not true. And the state has actually gotten a lot better since it had Republican control in it. That's only been 16 years, guys. So he's talking about generational change. We haven't even had a whole generation, because a generation is 20 years. We've not even had a whole generation where Republicans were in charge of things. Now, I got my own complaints about the Republicans, don't get me wrong. But the idea that there's this generational problem and that all of the young people are leaving Alabama for bigger and better things. First of all, it's not true. Two of the fastest growing areas in the country are Huntsville and Auburn. And so those are rapidly growing. Our population is increasing. Young people are moving from other states to Alabama, actually. And that has only happened since we adopted more conservative, economically feasible policies. Now, if you really want to accelerate that, make the Republicans do what they should have done a long time ago and eliminate the income tax, the exact opposite of what Doug Jones wants to do. He wants to raise taxes.
Change. That's the kind of Alabama that most every Alabama, regardless of who they vote for, regardless of their party, that's what they state. That's what they believe. That's what they want. I believe they're ready for a change. I believe the state government, and finally, they want a government that matches their decency, their generosity, their courage, their common sense. And that change is bigger than one person. It's bigger than a campaign.
I know what he's hinting at there is the welfare state, but if a person generally were generous, why would he have to have the government to match his generosity? Why would that be a necessity? Why can't he just give of his own money and means to other people? That's a talking point I've never understood. The government doesn't match anyone's generosity. The government, even in the ideal state of, in the minds of most Democrats, would only be a stopgap for that. But if people were generous, that wouldn't be necessary. So it's a bad talking point. Now, I don't like any welfare programs, but I'm saying even if the Democrats got their ideal, it would still, according to them, just be a measure for people who can't do for themselves. So if you want to match that generosity, why don't you just be generous yourself instead of trying to force government to do it? Well, they don't like that because then they would be paying for it and not the government.
Where everyone belongs and has a seat at that table. So they've got that voice. They've got that family. And we're giving everybody, every child, that one more chance. So tonight, because the Alabama, we believe, doesn't ask who can be pushed out. It asks who's been left out. And how are we going to bring them in? That's the spirit of this campaign, folks. That's what we all believe. And I see it and I feel it everywhere we go. You're not going to hear division from this folks up here. You're not going to hear division from folks like you. It is the Alabama that we can build together. So tonight, I thank you.
Does anybody believe that? Does anybody believe that someone with conservative ideas who, for example, believes in being pro-life is going to be welcome at the table with the Democrats? No one believes that, Doug.
To give us a chance, to join us, to be that force for change, to refuse to accept the way things are and the way that people think they've always been, because that is our way forward. That's what we're about. So tonight, let's celebrate. Let's tomorrow put our foot on the gas and head toward November. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Let's bring this
Doug Jones addressing his supporters up in Birmingham after winning the Democratic nomination for governor of Alabama.
Okay.
Mark, a number of candidates in that field, but
there we go. All right, so I am going to react to that real quick and just kind of give you an idea there. So one of the things that you probably heard there a lot, and it was frankly most of his speech with Doug Jones, this is something that the left does a lot. They love the language of inclusion. It's one of their core values, and inclusion is not necessarily a bad thing. Here's what I mean by that. One of the best things about the female psyche and the way that women tend to relate to people is they constantly worry about who's being left out, who's being included. And if you're a mother raising small children, this is a good virtue to have, because sometimes through no fault of their own, kid gets left out of something and should be included. And this is something that really hurts a mom's feelings when she sees a kid that is just being excluded for some reason, either because he's smaller or because he's not as athletic or whatever it is, he's being excluded from some type of activity. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're a mom raising young kids, because you're going to teach the kids that are excluding him that that's not necessarily a reason to leave him out and to consider other people's feelings when you make those decisions. And then you're also teaching the younger or smaller or less athletic or whoever's being left out to stick up for themselves. And that's not a bad thing either. That works fine when you're talking about direct interpersonal relationships, especially with people who are not adults. It does not scale to the real world. It does not scale into adulthood, and it does not scale into society-wide decisions. And here's what I mean by that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with seeing a situation where somebody is being excluded and then coming in, and even if it's larger than just 2 or 3 people, even if it's a 100-person organization, something like that, and saying, why are these people being left out? Is there anything we can do to bring these people in? Or are these people that should be included in X that are not? That's not a bad sentiment, but it doesn't work on the wide scale. And so because of that, it just doesn't work when you're talking about people that are being excluded for actual good reasons. So for example, it would be a really bad idea to have a kid that's 120 pounds, soaking wet, has no muscle mass, to put him as an offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. That is a form of exclusion that is not only bad for the team, or that is a form of exclusion that is not only good for the team, but good for the person. Like, that is exclusion. You are excluding somebody based on their lack of merit, and it's actually helping both parties involved. It's helping the excluder and the excludee. And to be honest, most of those people wouldn't want to be, but if he did, him wanting to be there is not a good enough reason to include him in that particular activity. It's bad for the fans. It's bad for the other. There's 100 different reasons why that's a bad idea. But so often the mistakes that Democrats make is they just constantly want to include everybody. And if anybody's being left out, you heard it in Doug Jones' speech, if anybody's being left out, if anybody is being excluded, if anybody is being kept out of something, then that's bad. That's automatically bad, and that shouldn't happen. Well, it might be bad, and I'm open to hearing the argument for why it might be bad and why we might need to make a little more effort to include that person. But it doesn't really work when you're talking about giant swaths of people. Now, if they're being excluded for something that's intangible that they can't control and it's something they could easily be included on, okay, that's fine. I'm open to hearing that argument too. But my point is, you can't just blanket statement say all exclusion is bad. Exclusion is a bad thing. We shouldn't be leaving people out. Well, there are some people that we should be leaving out. For example, when it comes to the military, you have to meet a certain level of physical standards before you can be a member of the active military and be over there fighting. Because if you don't do that, you're a danger to yourself and you're a danger to the rest of your unit if you do not meet those standards. I don't care if you're a woman and want to be a woman soldier. If you can't put on, 60 pounds worth of equipment and hike 2 miles up a mountain and potentially have to do that while carrying an injured soldier along with that extra weight, you don't need to be a Marine. I'm sorry. That's just the way that it works. Now, if there's a woman that theoretically could do that, maybe there's a good argument to be made for that. But the point is, you don't get to use the talking point of, well, everybody should be included, when there are some reasons that people are excluded for very good reasons. Exclusion is not necessarily a bad thing, and very often it is a very good thing. And that's one of the reasons that a Christian worldview kind of blows that entire idea up. Because if you are somebody that has a Christian worldview, you understand that there are certain times where exclusion is inherently good. God does a lot of excluding. Now, he excludes fairly. He looks at people based on their heart and not external or trivial things. But there are certain times where certain people are excluded and certain people aren't. Now, overall, he does have an inclusive nature. There's a reason that he sent his son to save the world, not this group of people or that group of people or a handful of people that he likes. Like, there is an inclusionary factor, and every single person in there has a role to play. But in the same way that the church, he says, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, there is neither Greek nor Jew, but all are one in Christ Jesus. That is something that God says. But that same God also turns around and says there are certain roles that men can fulfill in the church, and there are certain roles that women can fulfill in the church. And they don't necessarily always overlap. Sometimes there are things that only women are supposed to do. There are certain things that only men are supposed to do. When it comes to partaking the communion or engaging in active worship, there's some things that children are allowed to do. There's some things children are not allowed to do because they're not mature enough to handle that yet. That's not him saying that I hate kids. That's saying that there are certain roles that need to be fulfilled by people that are a little more mature, that have a little more know-how, that understand the doctrine better. You don't need a 7-year-old up there teaching your sermons. You just don't need to do it. It's a bad idea. And so that's just one example, but overall, as a Christian, somebody that has a Christian worldview, you understand that exclusion is sometimes the right course of action. And just throwing out the ultra vague idea that nobody should be excluded. No, some people should be excluded. And some people are excluded for their own benefit as much as everybody else's. In the same way that it would be a bad idea to have a woman elder. There are reasons for that. There are reasons that men are just better suited for that role. There's a reason that women are better suited for the role of teaching kids. They just have a better nature about it. They're more inclined to do so. And so because of that, there's a reason that God puts them forward as that being a part of their role. And so that's not a thing that's saying that there are no men that could do it possibly, but what it's saying is this is going to, if you abide by these rules, if you go by these standards that I've given you, that you're going to get much better results overall than if you ignore them. And so there's a really good reason that God puts those things in place. And them having an exclusionary nature about them is a good thing because heaven is extremely exclusionary. Hell is all inclusive. Anybody that wants to go to hell can come anytime they want, but you don't want to be there. And that's kind of the point. So in the same way, don't fall for that talking point. Sometimes exclusion is a very good thing. All right. So let's go ahead and look at some more results, and we may wind up wrapping up here pretty quickly because it looks like a lot of these results are starting to be finalized. I'm going to see if there's anything. Nope, nothing going on as far as election results on the live stream. So, and by the way, big hat tip and thank you to WSFA and 720 to Win and some of our other news sources for helping us out with this. Let's see, Barry Moore. Yeah, they've already marked him as going to the runoff. To me, the most interesting thing here is whether Marshall or Hudson are going to make in it. Marshall has made a little headway, and you're now getting 51% reporting. So it does look like he's probably going to be facing Marshall, but theoretically, Hudson could still make up that deficit. Tuberville's results, we already talked about those. Okay, now this is interesting because John Wall has actually pulled a little bit further ahead of Wes Allen, and this is with 50% reporting. All right, 46% reporting. It looks like Robertson is pretty far ahead for the Attorney General. Again, this one's still looking like you're going to see a runoff between her and Mitchell. That one just depresses me. All right, nothing new here. Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and look at WSFA's election results. We'll go ahead and refresh these to make sure they're current. All right. So they're also showing Wall about 3 points ahead of Allen, although theirs is not quite as complete. But they also show some races that we did not see on the other one. So, well, I say that. Maybe they've refreshed them and added them. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. 270, they tend to only care about the things that affect the statewide level or a national level. So you're probably not going to see a ton of extra with them. Yeah, that's just what theirs is going to look like. They're not going to add more results. Okay, So here we go. Again, this is less reporting, so that Steve Marshall was pulling a little further ahead. Let's see. Attorney General race, we already looked at that one. The treasurer, yeah, Young Boozer is going to win that one pretty easily. There's at 41% reporting with a 68%. I mean, there's no coming back from that. Lawley could get all of the votes that haven't come in, and he still probably wouldn't make up that deficit. That's just a huge, huge lead. That's over 100,000. Well, not over 100,000, but darn close to 100,000 votes. He's about 95-ish thousand votes ahead. Andrew Sorrell, yeah, gonna win that one pretty easy. Okay, this one is really interesting because the ag commissioner is still up for grabs. It looks like Corey Hill is going to win it. For those of you who don't know Corey Hill, he is a cattle farmer himself. He's raised cattle and I believe sheep as well. And he also runs a garden and a grocery store and is the mayor of Douglas, Alabama. So the dude wears a lot of hats, probably most of them cowboy hats. But dude wears a lot of hats. I think he'll be a good ag commissioner. He seems like somebody that knows the job. I still thought Jack Williams would have more experience because he's been in the state legislature. He understands how to navigate state law a little better. Jack Williams, I think, would be a good candidate. He's the one I voted for, but I'm not going to be upset if it's Corey Hill. The question is, do a lot of Jack Williams voters vote for McInnes or Hill? Because it's unlikely that Jack Williams is able to close that gap and be in contention here. That is almost 40% reporting. So yeah, it's unlikely he would be able to make up that ground. But well, I say that and I stand by it, but at the same time, ag commissioner does get more heated in the rural areas, and the rural areas are the ones that have not reported as much yet. So we will look into that. Let's go ahead and look at the, yeah. Let's see, state primaries. Yeah, let's look at, these are the areas that haven't really reported as much. So kind of the outline of the state and the middle, because, you know, Montgomery sucks at doing everything. So let's see. As far as the state Senate goes, Middleton, Stutz, Woods. Yep. Okay. Still no results on Gary Palmer, but I can't see Gary Palmer losing that race. Again, it's because most of his area is the one that hasn't really reported yet. Let's see. Maury Manning still trailing. Matt Gentry, to me, that one is just really surprising. I don't know what Jeremy Oden did to tick off the voters, but clearly, Gentry ran a pretty good campaign to unseat an incumbent like that. So more power to him. And it looks like Jim Ziegler's probably going to be our other public service commissioner. So it's him and Gentry, it looks like. But man, I did not see that coming with Jeremy Oden. That one is, I wouldn't say shocking, but definitely a surprise. Both of the constitutional amendments are going to pass easily. The district attorney compensation, that one's going to pass by at least 15 points. So yeah, not a surprise there. Let's see. Some of the state races, Randy Price, Kirk Hatcher pretty far ahead. Jay Hovey. Oh, this one's interesting. District 37, Jeff Monroe, I do know him. Like, not personally, but I know who he is. So that one's pretty interesting. Kevin Lawrence wins that one easily. Jasmine Krimmel for the... Wait. Jasmine is that like discount Jasmine Crockett? That's very similar. Let's see. Ooh, the Otaga County Sheriff. Man. Kevin McNatt, only able to crack 10%. It's kind of surprising. Didn't see Mark Harrell winning by that much, but oh well. By the way, for those of you who don't know, that's my former hometown. I'm from Marbury. So Otaga County is my neck of the woods. David Scruggs. Yep. They've already called that one for him for Butler County Sheriff. Huh. Don't see any others here that I'm particularly interested in. And if this is your district, I apologize. It's just, it's hard for me to keep up with every primary happening in the state tonight. I do pay more attention to the districts outside of my own when it comes to the general, but let's see here. Not much to report there. And again, a lot of central Alabama and the areas around us. So a lot of these, they have not reported yet, which is not surprising, but it is a little frustrating. Yeah, a lot of no reports. Okay, I know it's not that Will Norris, but Will Norris being on the ballot for the Democrats is funny because I know a Will Norris. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of stuff down ballot that is really like hotly contested. Tallapoosa County Commissioners, kind of, but he's still ahead by like 20 points. All right, well, let's see if 270 to win has any new updates. Not really. That race, they've gained about 5% reporting, but it's looking like that's just going to be where the race winds up. Again, Hudson is still in striking distance, and if he gets a lot of West Alabama, he could pull ahead, but I'm predicting a Steve Marshall Barrymore runoff at this point. I think that that's the most likely scenario because you're looking at like, let's see, that's Chilton. Wait, yeah, that's Coosa and that's Chilton. So Steve Marshall won Chilton. Interesting. Would not have necessarily predicted that. So Barry wins Otaga, Barry wins Elmore. That's not surprising because that used to be in his district, so he's going to have higher name ID there. He used to be District 2, and now he's District 1, and so they had to move him around a little bit. Jared Hudson wins these two in West Alabama. So, like I said before, he won the more liberal areas, and a lot of the liberal areas have not reported yet. So I may have to retract what I said. I still think the most likely scenario is going to be more Marshall. But if Hudson starts pulling in, not even necessarily all the votes, but just barely more than Marshall on these areas, he could theoretically, especially if he wins the counties outright, he could theoretically pull ahead and get into a runoff here. Coleman. Okay. All right. So that's the governor's race. They have now called it with 74% reporting that Wall and Allen will wind up in a runoff. They have called that race. I think that that's probably the right call. I said that a while ago, but now with over 50 50% reporting, they have gone ahead and called that one for a runoff. I think that's probably correct. Now this one is a little more surprising. The Attorney General, they have already called for Robertson and Mitchell. It's not a huge shock. They just got over 50% reporting, and you've got the other candidate 9 percentage points behind. Casey would have to just about outright win a whole bunch of these counties in order to win it now. Let's do a little bit of observation here. It seems as though Mitchell wound up getting a lot of the most conservative, or what I would consider the most conservative portion of the state, which is the eastern part of the state. So you're getting like right up here, you've got Randolph County, no reporting on Chambers County. He gets Tallapoosa. If he gets these areas, he's also more likely to win Lee. But you know, you're probably going to get a runoff at this point. I think that is interesting that Mitchell gets the most conservative parts of it. Robertson, I think, will probably win Montgomery. She's a Montgomery animal, and I'm not saying that in a degrading way. I'm just saying that like she is a product of the city of Montgomery. She's lived here for a while. She's worked here for a while. She has a stronger base here. Montgomery tends to go for people that it sees. She's not an incumbent, but she's like the next person up from Steve Marshall. She was Steve Marshall's right-hand person. So I could very much see this going the direction of that. Secretary of State, yeah, there's sadly no chance that Horn or Jackson win enough to force a runoff at this point, which is sad. Oh well. Nothing going on live stream. Let's see if there's anything else worth reporting here. And guys, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in. I think one of the reasons chat's been pretty quiet tonight is because, to be perfectly honest, there's just not a lot of surprises here. It's pretty much exactly what everybody was expecting. So WSFA has actually called a few of these races. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this just to make sure we're getting the most up-to-date one. Yeah, WSFA has called a few of their races, but it was ones that we kind of already knew about. Let's see. Yeah, that ag commissioner race, that is close. I may just stick around for a little bit longer just to see how that one goes, because that is tight as a tick. I'm not stunned that it's that close, but this one is the most interesting, and it's a shame that Jack Williams is bringing up the rear here, because I think he's actually a really strong candidate. Montgomery, why do you suck at counting things? Fix your school so you can find people that know how to count. Well, all right then. Not a whole lot going on. Okay, not much to report, so I might just go ahead and take another break here. Let's see, we've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so that's actually a fairly substantial one. We may just go ahead and take a quick break here. I don't want to call it a night just yet, because there's so many areas that haven't reported at all. And there's also that really interesting ag commissioners race. So what I may do here is I may just go ahead and bring up a break for a little bit and see if anything new comes in. And I will, of course, let y'all know if it does. If not, that's fine. But I'm just going to kind of hang out here and keep checking on the race, seeing what's going on, seeing how the results roll in. We'll take a second before I do that to just throw out a quick endorsement, and I'm going to be dropping some videos here recently. I'm not going to be endorsing a candidate. I'll be endorsing a product. So I got a buddy that has made a new jerky company. It's called Caliente Jerky. I have sampled some of it. I highly recommend it. You're going to actually get to see me sample some of his product on some of the videos I'm about to release here soon. So that's going to be super, super fun. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy that, but probably be posting that in the next few days. But really looking forward to it. He's not an official sponsor or anything. He's just a friend of mine that I want to get word out, and mainly just because it makes a darn good piece of jerky. Like, I've had a lot of jerky in my life, mainly because it's a high protein, low carb snack. And because of that, I've eaten a lot of different jerky. Like, I've tried all the I won't name them obviously, but I've tried a lot of the name brands. I've tried a lot of the store-bought stuff, and I like it. It's fine. But this jerky is on a whole other level. It's really good, very flavorful, very spicy. There's a reason it's called Caliente Jerky. And I'm somebody with a very high spice tolerance, and there were a few of them that even I was like, whew, it's good. But I'm going to have to brace myself before I take bite number 2. So I do really recommend it. Check it out, calientejerky.com, calientejerky.com. And if you're white like me, just look it up. I know it's a scary foreign word, but you can spell it. It's jerky. It's really good jerky, so it's worth it. So look it up, calientejerky.com. Like I said, I'll be dropping some stuff about it probably here in the next few days. So look forward to that. And with that, we will take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
Hey, where you going? Champ? Slugger? Hey, cowboy. Where you going? Where you going?
I'm going out!
Hey everyone, it's Caleb here on I-65 South, heading back to Montgomery from Clinton, which, as you could probably guess, means I got Whataburger, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I was in traffic earlier, and there was a guy that just out of the goodness of my heart saw that I was running out of lane and needed to get over, and just let me in. And I gave him my courtesy thank you thumbs up, but I don't like to do the thank you wave. I think that it could be misinterpreted as like saying, hey, back off or something like that. And so I like to give the thumbs up, but it really made me aware of the fact that we don't have a great gratitude sign. We need a road gratitude sign so everybody knows that that means thank you. But anyway, it did make me aware of the fact that I think as a society, we're just not as grateful as we need to be. And I think that is a real problem. Because gratitude is something that is just so important for every individual to learn. And it's something that people will recognize in others and admire. I think regardless of what side of the political spectrum that you are on, it's very easy to fall prey to ingratitude. It's very easy to forget to be thankful for the things that you've been given. For example, on the political right, I'll start with us. We love individualism. We love this kind of rugged, do-it-yourself kind of mentality, and I do too. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think that's actually a good thing. But sometimes we can get so swept up in it that we start thinking that we got there on our own. I mean, I believe that people can be good and build things that are exceptional and help out people, but I think we do also have to remember and acknowledge that no matter how talented an individual is, no matter how hard they work, there's always somebody that was helping them out. Whether it's your parents and the way you were raised, whether it was your family and supporting you when you needed them, whether it was people at your work that helped you out with that, no man is an island. We all work together to be able to achieve things. And so sometimes that sort of rugged individualism mindset can get in our way. Then on the contrast, when it comes to the political left, they kind of have the opposite mentality, and that's the reason that they can also have a problem with being grateful. So a lot of people on the left have an entitlement mindset, that they think that they are owed certain things, whether it was because of past grievances or because that's just something that they inherently believe they have a right to, like healthcare. Regardless of what it is, they just kind of believe that they're supposed to get things and other people are just supposed to do things for them. And so that's also a toxic mindset that could lead somebody to be ungrateful for the things that they've been given, because you're not grateful for things that you think you're supposed to just get. And so really both sides can fall prey to this trap of not being grateful. And when I think about gratitude, the very first Bible story that I usually think about is the story of Jesus and the 10 lepers. Now I want you to think about leprosy and remember it in its cultural context. At the time, not only was it a horrible and painful disease that you pretty much had for the rest of your life in most cases, but there was also a social aspect to it. You had to be an outcast from society. So not only did you have the physical pain, the scarring that happened to your skin, all of those things, but you also had a great emotional burden too. You were cast out from society. You couldn't be around your friends or your family for fear of infecting them. You had to live on the outskirts of town. And then on top of that, you also had the spiritual exile. There were people in the day that believed that if you had leprosy, it was because God was punishing you for something. And so they assumed that if you had leprosy, it was some kind of divine punishment for some great evil that you did. And that would cause people to judge you on the spiritual level as well. And so there were so many facets of leprosy that were just horrible. And yet here are 10 men that have leprosy that come to this man, Jesus Christ, and in an instant, all that goes away. He heals them. They're just whole now. Which, by the way, is exactly the way and is an apt metaphor for how Jesus deals with our sin. That we're dealing with a disease that we have absolutely no hope of surviving. We have no ability to cure ourselves or to fix the problem ourselves. And along comes Jesus Christ and says, I'll heal you. I'll fix it. I will repair this thing that you cannot handle on your own. And even after this, 9 lepers just didn't come back. There's only one leper in the group that decided that Jesus was worth thanking, worth coming back for and saying, thank you for doing this for me. I think if we follow that man's example, that's going to go a long way in fixing some of the problems in our country. I don't think that it's a fix-all cure. I don't think it's a silver bullet that are going to solve all of the political and socio-economical problems that we have in the country. I don't believe that at all. But don't you think if both sides, that all people in America learn to be a little bit more grateful for the things that we've had and acknowledge that other people in our lives and ultimately God had a big part to play in anything that we have? Don't you think that would go an awful long way in improving the spiritual health of our country? I certainly think so.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
Okay, and we are back. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're sticking it out and still watching the election results, I do have a quick update. Doesn't have anything to do with any of the primaries in Alabama, but for those of you who don't know, Kentucky also had its election today, and one of the things that a lot of people have paid attention to in this primary, because of everything that's going on, is will Thomas Massey be able to retain his seat in the face of Ed, I have no idea how to say his last name, Geeheen or something like that? The reason that that's interesting is because Massey is a person that objectively has one of the most conservative voting records in the House of Representatives. He just does. He has a lifetime score of somewhere floating between 86 and 92. He votes with the Republicans and with President Trump over 90% of the time, but Trump still wanted to primary him. He's had his guys out there, including J.D. Vance and Steve Miller, going out bashing Massey, trying to make sure that they stomp him in this primary. And the reason this is so fascinating is because Massey has always generally been pretty popular in his district and won several primaries already. But this is the first time the Trump administration has just decided that they're going to go after him. So there's a couple different angles on this, and I'm going to tackle it in a couple different ways. For those of you who don't know, I actually wrote a blog article recently on why Trump and Massey are at odds, and I'm not going to repeat all of it. But the gist of it was, the reason that there is this spat between the two of them, and the reason that Trump doesn't like Massey, is because, and I tend to side with Massey on most of these fights. So full disclosure, I'm more on Massey's side in this one. But one of the things that Massey does is he will vote with the Republicans on all of the issues that involve fiscal responsibility and any of that stuff. But because he's a libertarian and because he's a small government isolationist guy, he has traditionally, even when Trump wasn't in office, voted for that stuff, regardless of who brings up the bill or whether or not the GOP wants him to vote for it. That's who the guy is. You can like it, not like it. That's who he is. He's an ideologue. He believes in that. The reason that it frustrates Trump so much and that he can't just be content with a guy that votes with him over 90% of the time, but then we'll just talk about people like Lindsey Graham who votes with him like 60% of the time, as though he's the greatest senator, the greatest statesman that America has ever seen. Like, he would put him on the same level as Abraham Lincoln, the way that he talks about Lindsey Graham, even though Lindsey Graham votes against Trump a lot. The reason for that is because it's when Massey votes against it, it's almost always when it's an extremely tight vote and they need his vote to get it across the finish line. And the thing that just sticks in Trump's craw is, yeah, he's with him most of the time, but it's almost always a big, really important bill that Trump is trying to push through when he votes against him. And that's mostly because it's the really big bills, the ones that they work really hard on, that are really long, that are the big government stuff that he doesn't like. And so think about it this way. Let's say that you were a baker and there's a guy that consistently, every single day without fail, comes in to your shop and gets a muffin because he loves your muffins. He thinks your muffins are the best in the city, buys a muffin every single day, does that for years. Let's say 5 years he does this. Like, you've made a lot of money off this individual just buying a muffin every day. Even if it's just like a $2 muffin, you multiply that over the course of 5 or 6 years or a decade even, and you've made a ton of money off that guy. Let's say this guy attends a wedding that you are baking the wedding cake for. And this is a wedding cake that you spent weeks planning it. You spent all kinds of capital and resources trying to figure out what flavor it should be and what it's going to look like. And you had to bring in extra people just to get some of the parts right. And this is something that you consider one of the best wedding cakes you've ever made. Like, you're super proud of it. You've made hundreds of wedding cakes over the years, but this is one of the best ones you've ever done. And that guy who bought a muffin from you every morning for the past 5 years, he winds up going to that wedding and he takes a bite of the cake, spits it out, makes a big deal about it in front of everybody, talks about how terrible that cake was, how it was the worst cake he's ever had. He thought it was ugly. He thought it tasted bad, just couldn't stand it. Went around to other people at the wedding telling them, guys, I hate this cake. This cake is the worst. Don't even bother. It's crap. Don't try it. It's awful. If you're the person that baked that cake, even if that guy has bought a muffin from you every single day for 5 years, don't you think the wedding cake thing is going to stick out a lot more in your memory? Don't you think there's going to be some animosity and some hurt there? Because sure, this guy likes your muffins, but you make muffins all the time. Like, you make them every day. There's not a lot of effort in it. You make a whole bunch of them regardless of whether he's there or not. And so that single offense sticks out to you. Let's say he's done that 2 or 3 times at a couple of different weddings. Dude loves your muffins, raves about them, talks about how great they are. But every single time out of the 3 or 4 times that you've made the wedding cake and he's at that wedding, he talks about how terrible your wedding cakes are. That is going to stick out to you way more than the hundreds of times he's bought a muffin from you. And that's where Trump and Massey are. Trump, every time there's a big fight or something where he needs every vote that he can, and it's a big piece of legislation, and I don't always agree with that. Like I said, I usually side with Massey on this stuff. But every time he does that, there's Massey talking trash about it, talking about how bad it is, talking about how this is a horrible bill and it needs to be thrown away, and trying to encourage other people not to vote for it. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is in the right here. What I am saying is, do you understand now why Trump has this level of vitriol for Massey? Not saying it's justified, saying you can understand it based on that perspective. Now, let's go at it from the other angle, because Massey is not innocent in this. And I say innocent. It's not like he's committed a crime or anything. But my point is, Massey goes out of his way to trash talk stuff like that every chance he gets, and he wears it as a badge of honor that he votes against that stuff when all the other Republicans vote in favor of it. He has let Trump break his bane. He has Trump derangement syndrome. He doesn't have it in the same way that the Democrats do. It's a different version. It's a different strain. This is the Omicron variant. Give everybody PTSD from the COVID days. But my point is, Tom Massey, he kind of brings a lot of this on himself, because I'm not saying that Trump wouldn't have primaried him over a petty squabble. Like, that's very much in Trump's character to do that. But Massey goes out of his way to be a jerk about it. He just does. I'm sorry. Like, again, I like Massey. I was hoping that he would win this election. If I lived in the 4th District of Kentucky, I would be voting for Massey today. But at the same time, Massey does not do himself any favors. He intentionally goes out of his way to poke at the president for no reason. And I don't have a problem with calling President Trump out when he's wrong about something. I do it a lot. I famously was part of the Never Trump movement. I didn't vote for the man. So, like, I obviously don't have a problem with Massey calling him out. But what I'm saying is, he goes out of his way to be as vitriolic and as much of a jerk about it as he possibly can. And that's not helping his case either. And so he ticked off the president. He's now lost his primary. And I hate to say that, because I was really pulling for him. I really wanted him to be able to pull this one out. Not just because, you know, I would like to believe that the party doesn't just do whatever Trump tells them to do. But unfortunately it has. Like, we are living in an era where you can't do anything if you don't have, I'll say it this way. This is the most correct way to say it. You can be successful as a Republican politician without Trump's endorsement. You can. That's been proven. What you cannot do is be on Trump's hit list and survive. Just over and over and over and again consistently. If Trump endorses somebody, that doesn't necessarily guarantee they will win the election. But if Trump goes out of his way to bash somebody, that pretty much guarantees they will lose. If he bashes a fellow Republican, I don't think that the Republican Party has enough objectivity left in them to be able to say, nope, Trump was wrong about that and move on. They can't do it. So there we are. It's unfortunate, but that's where we live now. So it is what it is. All right. So that being said, let's go ahead and, I will say this one last thing. I was really hoping that Massey was going to squeak out a win here. But if this guy winds up being and I think he's going to be a Trump sycophant. I just do. Like, it makes sense. He's probably going to be less conservative than Massey, because the problem is Massey is also more conservative with Trump, and getting to Trump's right on issues, that also burns him up. He doesn't like that. So this guy is less conservative than Massey by everything that I've seen. He's probably going to vote less conservatively than Massey, which is a shame. But he probably is going to help get more of Trump's agenda through. And so is there going to be a change in policy if Massey had not been here? Not really. And I will also add this. Massey didn't just go out of his way to antagonize the president when he didn't need to. Like, he poked the bear when it was unnecessary. He also made the mistake of allying himself with the president's enemies. Now, the Democrats are not smart enough to figure this out. But if they had left Massey alone, they probably would have been able to have him stay in the House and count on him being a no vote on some of the really big bills that they would like to have fewer votes to have to pull away from Trump. And so the squad and a lot of the Democrats, they actually wanted Massey in there, not because they think that he's a small government conservative and, man, this guy really thinks like us. Like, they know he's about as far the opposite of thinking like them as it is possible to be, because they're all big government people. What did happen, though, is they were like, yeah, but we can count on him to vote no on, like, the big, beautiful bill, and it ticks Trump off, and so we want him to stay in office. if they had any brains in their head, they would have, if that's what they really wanted, not said anything positive about Massey, talked trash about him so that there would have been a little more ambiguity there. But unfortunately, Massey let it get personal. He took the, granted, Trump isn't helping here, but he took the attacks personal. He took that to heart. He got personally insulted, and he would go out of his way to ally himself with people like Chink Winger, what, I don't know. He has the weirdest to pronounce name ever. The bacon grease guy, the one that was on Young Turks. He's gone on the Young Turks to try to curry votes. That's stupid. I'm sorry. That's just a bad idea all the way around. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. You're not going to curry a lot of Kentuckians by going on the Young Turks. He's allied himself with people on the left, and they've got this strange new respect for him and talking good about him. Massey, he fell for the rope-a-dope. I'm sorry, he did. And he's paying the price for it now because he's not going to be in the House anymore, which I don't know. Maybe that's actually the reward. Maybe that, because I wouldn't want to be in the House either. So maybe that actually is what he was going for. I don't know. But either way, I hate to see that election didn't go the way that it was, that it did, but Massey is going to be out come January. So there you have it. All right. So that being said, let's go ahead and check a few of these results, see if any updates have happened. All right. So the 270 to win folks, they have yet to call the race in the Senate primary. And it looks like Hudson has actually, wow, with 78 reporting, Hudson has closed the gap a little bit. So we could very well see Hudson overtake and see a Hudson Moore runoff. I think that Barry Moore has it in the bag just based on that, because remember that Moore is still only Moore's lead actually has increased now. So I don't think this is going to happen because Moore would have to win the remaining counties that have not reported by a lot, and I mean a lot, in order to get over that 50% mark. But it is at least theoretically possible he could get the points that he needs to get over that hump, and Moore probably is going to win most of these counties. The problem is if Hudson performs well in these western counties, in Greene, in Sumter, in Choctaw, and he is doing a lot better out in the West, then he might be able to overtake Marshall, and he may be able to prevent Moore from getting that 50%. Wilcox, I could see Hudson winning Wilcox as well. It's a notoriously liberal area with a lot of election fraud, but that's a whole other thing. Macon County, I expect Barry Moore to win that. Chambers County has not reported either. I expect Moore to win that one, but he would have to win by very large margins to get over the 50% mark at this point. I just don't see that happening. So I think you're almost guaranteed that Barry Moore is not going to win this by 50%. He's going to be in a runoff. Okay, the lieutenant governor primary. Again, the percentages haven't changed much. Wall's pulled ahead a little bit, but you're almost certainly going to see a Wall-Allen runoff at this point. So, oh, they have called the race for Jay Mitchell going to the runoff. Not a surprise there. Casey's just not going to be able to make up that ground, so that's not really a shocker. All right, let's look at WSFA's results here. Looks like there's nothing really on the stream going on here. Wait, what? Oh, that's weather. I was about to say, what are they showing? No. All right. So yeah, Wall and Allen, they 270 to win already called it for those two, and that's certainly the right call. Let's see what we got here. That ag commissioner race is still neck and neck. That one really hasn't changed at all. I mean, there is more reporting, but the results are the same. No results on District 1. That's quite a surprise as well. And that's an interesting race, too. Nothing on District 6. Man. That is surprising because several counties from District 6 have reported now. So I don't know if there's like some kind of glitch in the system or what. Because, I mean, we've got reporting. Oh, that's State Senate. Never mind. But yeah, there's several District 6 areas here that have reported. So I don't know what they're dragging their feet on that one. Let's see. Man, that still astounds me that Gentry is so far ahead. Ziegler's going to win that one pretty easily. All right, doesn't look like there's a ton of news here. So I'm probably just going to wrap it up here because the thing is, I could stick around for the ag commissioner race, but with as close as it is, you're probably looking at 11 o'clock midnight before you get anything out of there. And while it is true that technically there's been no reporting for the District 6 election, guys, the idea that Gary Palmer is going to lose that one is quite unlikely. I do not see that happening. So, and I don't really see much else here that's report worthy. Corey Clements. I don't know why I say Clemson. College football on the brain. Yeah, there's just not a lot of surprises here. Nick Carter barely beats Faulkner on the Republican committee. And it looks like Randall Houston beats Aaron Wright. That one, not surprising at all in Elmore County. Well, but yeah, I think that's probably going to be pretty much it. I don't see much else here worth reporting. Yeah, just not a lot here. Okay. Well, not a lot else to say here. Oh, this will be an interesting thing to showcase a point that I made. Doug Jones did not win his primary by as much as Tommy Tuberville won his. So he's about, it's close, but he's about right around 7.5 behind, 7.5 points. But look at the difference in votes. You had 360,000 versus 216,000. So even if Doug Jones got literally every single vote that voted in the Democrat primary, he still would not have enough to beat Tommy Tuberville. So yes, the idea that he floated in his victory speech that he's going to win in November. Okay, Doug, we'll see how that goes for you. Tuberville could actually lose votes and still win this one. Oh, man. But, you know, a boy can dream, I guess. He can dream of facing Roy Moore again in a primary. He might actually be able to win that one. I don't foresee that one going anywhere. All right, one last time, we'll take a look at the 270 to win to see if there's any updates. I don't think there's going to be, because most of the races that they were covering, they've already been called. Yeah, and I think that's probably where we're going to end it. All right, well, we will go ahead and call it a night then. Thank you so much for sticking around here. This was a fun little thing to do. I was going to watch the election results anyway, so it's fun to be able to talk to y'all for a little bit as we were going to be doing that. But that's going to be it for me for this evening. Thank you so much for being with us. And I will probably not be doing a whole lot of podcasting here in the near future. I got to get ready for my Greek comp exam soon. But thank you so much for being with us here for the election night. And I might put something else out about the runoff when it happens, but just stay tuned to the Tactics socials if that's something that you're interested in. So we will call it there this evening. Stay the course, friends.
Thank you for listening to the Tactics Podcast. Tactics is a production of Not Ashamed Media. Any opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of our business partners or sponsors. Graphics by Jessica Dawson. Video production by Jackson Dean. Broadcast studio provided by Faulkner University. Location studio provided by Del Reyta Church of Christ. Copyright